2 winters have passed since fire split the sky and tore them apart. 2 years of searching through shadows and silence, chasing echoes of a bond that never should have survived now in the depths of an abandoned mine beneath layers of cold stone and time. A trembling breath rises, a pair of eyes open, not with fear, but with something deeper, older, aching. The boy moves forward, heart racing, not knowing if hope is a curse or a calling. And as their eyes meet across the darkness, the past crashes into the present. Memory becomes muscle pain, becomes pulse, and something broken begins to breathe again, because some connections defy distance, defy time, defy even death. They do not ask, they remember. Each morning, he wakes just before dawn, not because he has to, but because he always did when she was with him. The habit remains like muscle memory. His fingers reaching for a bowl he no longer fills with warm milk, his eyes scanning the tree line. Though nothing ever moves there anymore, his home is quiet, not from peace, but from absence. His room lined with sketches, some complete, some only outlines all of her. He never shows them to anyone, never speaks her name, but sometimes he hums the tune. He used to whistle when they walked together through the woods. It's not loud, just a thread of sound that drifts, then vanishes like her tracks in the snow outside. The world believes he's moved on, grown up, found other things to love. But inside, there's a weight that never shifts, a pause in his breath each time the wind brushes the window like the swipe of a tail. He tries not to hope anymore. Hope hurts, but when sleep comes, if it comes, he dreams of pale fur, warm against his side of eyes, blinking slowly in trust. And when he wakes, heart pounding from nothing, he can explain. He always turns toward the door just in case. The sky cracked open with fire and sound. The forest they had called home split into chaos. Trees shrieking, animals scattering smoke, swallowing everything familiar. Eli ran blindly through the heat, calling her name again and again. Voice raw with panic. The only answer, the roar of flame and the thud of falling branches. She was there, a flash of white vanishing between shadows, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. He lunged forward, but hands dragged him back, strong adult hands yelling about safety, about running. And then she was gone. Not lost, just gone. And that was somehow worse, because he had not let go. He had been torn, and the moment split him inside. From that night, everything dimmed. The world blurred at the edges, and he stopped speaking of her. Not because he forgot, but because the words hurt too much, while she in the ashes of that forest waited, heart-pounding body still hoping he would come. The wind changed, but he didn't arrive. Days passed. Hunger grew. Fear settled like dust on her coat, and she ran far until she could no longer remember where the world ended, and silence began. She became a shadow, avoiding sound, avoiding light, avoiding the ache that came with remembering he had held her once. She still felt it in dreams, a warmth that memory could not kill. Eli, too, changed. His laugh faded, his hands stayed in his pockets, shoulders always slightly curled inward, as if bracing against something no one else could see. He moved, through school, through home, through days like a figure painted into the background, quiet, polite, unreachable. And in the space between them, time did not heal. It deepened, made the silence heavier, until every sunrise felt like a reminder, not of what had passed, but of what had never returned. Let me pause here for just a moment and ask you, where are you listening from right now? Have you ever had someone, a person, or even an animal, remember you after years apart? That quiet moment of recognition when time disappears. If stories like this touch something in you, don't forget to follow. There's much more ahead, full of feeling, memory, and the kind of connection that never really fades. It started with a photo, blurry, taken on an old phone, passed between hands in a cold village cafe. A pale figure, half shadow, half snow, disappearing into the edge of a forgotten forest. They said it was a threat. Something wild, maybe sick, maybe lost. But Eli's breath caught because somewhere in the blur he saw not danger, but memory, a curve of muscle, a slant of ear, the exact shape of something he hadn't seen in 2 years, and yet had never stopped seeing in his mind. He stared at the photo so long, his fingers began to shake, not from the cold, but from the war inside him. What if it was her? What if it wasn't? What if she had forgotten? What if she hadn't? What if he found her, and she ran, or worse, didn't recognize him? Would he be able to walk away again? This time by choice. His body knew the answer, before his thoughts did. He was already packing, moving fast as if delay might close the window forever. The road was long, ice biting through his boots, snow dragging at his legs, but his mind burned with something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not certainty, but movement. The mine appeared like something from a dream or a warning. Black and still in a white world. He stood at the edge listening. The wind said nothing, but his chest felt full of thunder, and then he went down step by step into the dark, unsure if he was chasing a ghost or being led by one. Unsure if this was the end of a story or the start of a miracle. The cold inside the mine was the kind that settled into bone, but Eli didn't feel it not. Really not, as he stepped into the half-light and saw her curled in the shadows, still as stone, her breath so faint it almost vanished between one heartbeat and the next. He stopped, feet sinking into icy dust. Heart thudding too loud in the hush, whispered her name softly, not as a question, not as a call, but like a memory spoken aloud. And for a moment, nothing changed. The silence held steady like it had for years. And then a flicker. One ear twitched, her head lifted sluggish. Hesitant, her eyes met, his pale, unfocused wary, and yet something flickered there. A pause stretched between them, taut as wire. She made a low sound, not quite a growl, not quite a whimper, more like a question wrapped in disbelief. And Eli dropped to his knees, slowly, carefully, his breath catching in his throat. He didn't speak again, didn't move closer, just opened his arms a little, palms up his face. Open tears stinging his eyes. She stared. Her body trembled. Her nose lifted. Sniffed the air as if scent could carry memory. And maybe it could, because she took one slow step, then another. Her legs shaking, her ribs sharp beneath thinning fur, but her eyes locked on his, and then she pressed her head into his chest. Not with force, not with fear, but with the weight of everything she'd carried alone, and in that instant the silence shattered. Not with noise, but with knowing. He wrapped his arms around her gently, as if holding a heartbeat, and they stayed there, motionless. Breath to breath, not saying a word, because they didn't have. To the years apart, the ache, the not knowing all of it, cracked open and poured out in that moment of contact, where past and present met, and the thread between them pulled taut did not snap, but sang. The days that followed moved slowly, like thawing ice. Each morning, she lifted her head a little easier. Each evening, he sat beside her, hands resting quietly in the grass. Sometimes she would nudge his shoulder just once, a soft touch like a question, and he would smile, not wide, not bright, but real and steady. They didn't rush anything. Their bond rebuilt itself in pieces, in moments. She began to follow him again, not because she had to, but because she chose to, her steps light. But sure, her eyes watching him like they remembered more than they could. Explain. He would whistle an old tune absently and see her ears tilt toward the sound the way they used to. Once he held out a smooth river stone she used to bat at as a cub and watched her pause, hesitate, then tap it once with her paw, the smallest act. And yet it undid something heavy inside him, in the quiet they shared. There was no need for words, the way she leaned into his side as he read, the way she curled near the porch at night, waiting for him to come back from town. The way he looked at her, not as something miraculous, but as someone he had known all his life. Trust did not return. In grand gestures, it came in the rhythm of breath, in the patience of waiting, in the stillness that no longer felt empty. And though neither of them could reclaim, the years they had lost, the silence between them was no longer hollow. It was full of memory, full of presence, full of love. And perhaps that is what healing truly is. Not forgetting the pain, but living beyond it together. Some bonds are not broken. By time or silence or the long cold stretch of absence, they do not fade. They do not forget. They simply wait quietly, patiently, like breath beneath the surface. And when the moment comes, when eyes meet and memory stirs, they return not as they were, but as something deeper. Something proven. This was never just a rescue, never just reunion. It was two lives finding their shape again around each other. Pain softened trust, reborn and love, that had never truly left, finding its voice in the quiet and staying. This time not as a hope but as a truth.